confusion. The state of Arkansas just tallied its highest one-day COVID spike since February. And the governor says the Delta variant is what's driving it. Doctors say the strain is highly transmissible, and that's why Los Angeles officials are now telling people to mask up indoors even if they are vaccinated, which directly contradicts guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control.
And as we approach the holiday weekend now, with tens of millions of Americans prepping to travel, can we put some of this confusion to rest? Well, some new data out of the UK might help. It shows the cases are going up, but that deaths and hospitalization rates from the virus are way down as more and more people worldwide get vaccinated. That's even with the Delta variant circulating.
Here at home, nearly 60% of adults are fully vaccinated. So what's the data that matters here, as some officials in the U.S. are suggesting new restrictions? Fox News contributor and NYU Langone medical professor Dr. Mark Siegel joins us now. So, Mark, we see the spike in cases in Arkansas. They're being attributed to the Delta variant. How much of an issue could this be as we head into the long holiday weekend, particularly if you take the UK as a potential model here?
Well, John, Jillian just set this up perfectly. Let's look at the UK, and I'll tell you why we shouldn't be afraid if we're vaccinated. It's mixed messaging for Los Angeles County to be saying, put your mask back on indoors if you're vaccinated. You know what? They're wrong. The CDC is right to stick to their initial guidelines. You know why? Let's look at UK. Out of all of the hospitalizations in the United Kingdom right now, many thousands of hospitalizations, less than 1,000 are due to COVID-19. 14 deaths in the United Kingdom. There's 26,000 cases yesterday, but almost all of them were mild. Very few hospitalizations, almost no deaths. That's because in the UK, 86% of the people have had at least one shot, and more importantly, 65% have had two shots. What does that mean? If you're vaccinated fully against COVID-19, and new data came out on the Johnson & Johnson shot today, by the way. If you have the Johnson & Johnson shot, one shot, or two of the other Pfizer or Moderna shots, you're almost definitely not going to get particularly ill from this, from COVID-19, even if you got a very mild case. So 26,000 cases in the UK, almost all of them mild because of the high vaccination rate. The problem in the United States right now is that in the South and in the West, there's a lot of areas of low vaccine compliance. Arkansas is recognizing that, John, and they're trying to get people to take the vaccine, so far with more success than they had previously. Get vaccinated.
I wanted to mention that because the vast majority of these Delta coronavirus infections are among people who haven't been vaccinated or haven't been fully vaccinated. And now the state health commissioner in Arkansas is saying if you've only had one shot, come in and get the second, even if it's past the typical 21-day window. And there's some evidence from other countries, and I don't know if it's just to cover a shortage of vaccines, that potentially waiting longer than 21 days before your second shot may actually confer greater immunity than if you do it on the 3-week schedule. What do you know about all of that?
That's so true. The last point, Pfizer has studied that and found that waiting more than 3 weeks actually may confer more of an immunity. I'm certainly in favor of that with the teens. We've seen that problem with myocarditis. Very, very rare, but I believe delaying a vaccine in our young teens is wise because they may have more of a hyperimmune response. But delay not too much. I mean, again, Great Britain, 87,000 hospitalizations, only 1,000 from COVID. It would be closer to zero if everyone in the UK had two shots. Another point is if you have natural immunity from having had COVID, I think you're protected against the Delta variant too. I think the data proves that and suggests it. But John, if you take COVID, having had COVID, getting antibodies, and take one shot in addition to that, COVID plus one, I call it, I think you get a super immunity, which clearly protects you against the Delta variant.
Now, Doc, here's a question I'm going to ask you as a parent because my 10-year-old twins asked me this just yesterday. They said, Dad, we're hearing all about this Delta variant. How dangerous could it be for us because we're too young to get the vaccine right now? So what do we do about children who are under the age of 12?
Really great question. First thing we do, and I'm going to go back to old vaccine science here that I've been talking about for many years. You make sure that everybody around the children are vaccinated. That's called a community immunity. You want the community vaccinated. Secondly, the children, obviously, if they're around COVID, they're the ones that you would want to take the precautions. But the third point is that even though the Delta variant is affecting children more than previous variants, your children should know, John, it's still very, very, very likely to be a very mild or asymptomatic case.
All right. So, Doc, when are we ultimately going to be able to put all of this behind us?
I think if we start counting natural immunity from having gotten over COVID and everybody starts getting up to the plate here and realizing by protecting America you take the vaccine, we'll be out of it overnight. That's the issue. It's vaccine compliance. I was just in Iceland. 87% of the country was vaccinated. They haven't had a case in Iceland in 1 month or more. They're completely wide open. We can get there too.
All right. Iceland's a beautiful place. I'm jealous. Doc, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Jillian?
So if you're one of the millions of Americans that's planning to fly this holiday weekend, are you going to have to wear a mask aboard the plane? Well, a group of bipartisan senators is now urging the CDC and the TSA to make a decision on mask requirements for Americans on public transportation and to make it soon. Congressional correspondent Jackie Heinrich has all the answers. She joins us from Capitol Hill. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Jillian. Yeah, back in May, the CDC lifted the general requirements for masks and social distancing for fully vaccinated Americans, saying that they would update the requirements for travel guidance as soon as the science emerged. But we haven't heard anything since then. And now this group of bipartisan senators wants some answers from the CDC and the TSA within the next 12 days. Last week, Democrats blocked a bill that was led by Republicans. It would have prohibited federal mask requirements on public transportation and planes. They were saying at this stage, where most everybody has access at the very least to a vaccine, the federal government shouldn't be imposing these rules. But now some Democrats are saying it is time to get new data so the rules can possibly be revisited. Democratic Senators Klobuchar and Schatz joined 3 Republicans in saying if the requirement for wearing masks while traveling can be safely lifted and would serve the public health interest, then we believe it would benefit the traveling public. Meantime, CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky just yesterday reiterated that vaccinated people are safe, adding that local officials should be making their own rules.
We have 2/3 of the adult population that is fully vaccinated and really quite protected from the variants that we have circulating here in the United States. That said, we've always said that local policymakers need to make policies for their local environment.
So the senators want to know if the country is this protected, what exactly is it that's keeping the mask requirement in place? Wait to hear from them. Jillian?
Fair question. Jackie Heinrich on Capitol Hill, thanks so much.
Jillian, search and rescue efforts are on hold at that collapsed condominium building in Florida due to structural concerns. Today marks a week now since the disaster, and President Biden is in Florida to see the devastation firsthand. He also met with first responders and victims' families. The number of people confirmed dead now stands at 18, more than 140 still missing. And for the time being, searchers are being held back due to safety concerns. Fox News correspondent Phil Keating is live on the ground in Surfside, Florida. Phil, yesterday we heard the desperate pleas from the family members of potential victims to hurry up and get this done. Now it's all on hold. They have to be disappointed.
Yeah, it froze at 2 this morning, and really when the president comes to the scene of a disaster to meet with search and rescue crews and family members, that's big news. Well, he is being overshadowed, his visit, because of the stoppage of the search and rescue operation. The reason is that brown tower you see standing right there. That is the half of the Surfside condo tower that collapsed that remains still standing, fragilely. Engineers and fire and rescue have been worried about it also falling down all week. And overnight, they decided the danger is just too great for the lives of those still looking down below for survivors.
Concern assessors included 6 to 12 inches of movement in a large column hanging from the structure that could fall and cause damage to the support columns in the subterranean garage area.
The president and first lady received a command briefing first thing this morning and then met with first responders, search and rescue teams.
We understand anybody who's ever needed to. They understand. And you guys, what you're doing now is just hard as hell to deal with, even psychologically, to deal with it. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
The President and First Lady also met with family members just in the past hour of the 145 loved ones who still have yet to be found, dead or alive, consoling them as best they could. That was closed to the press. At the disaster scene, 18 residents are now confirmed dead, and 2 discovered yesterday were young sisters, children, a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. Their parents also died in the building's collapse. More search and rescue teams are coming in from Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. More boots on the ground as not only this operation is going on, but it's currently paused, but Tropical Storm Elsa is on the way and could hit South Florida next week. Today is day 8 of this search for survivors, and exactly 1 week to the day since half of Surfside's 12-story Champlain Tower South pancaked to the ground. Everybody knows that time is of the essence. That's why this 12 hours so far stoppage in searching is really bad news for all the family members still really hoping for a miracle. The president was maybe going to come visit in person to see for himself because of the danger that's now off.
And you've got to wonder, Phil, with that beam hanging precariously, that support pillar, how long it's going to be that they're off the pile. Wow. Phil Keating for us in Surfside. Yeah. Phil, thank you. Jillian?
Let's bring in Ari Fleischer now. He's former White House press secretary to President George W. Bush. He's also a Fox News contributor. Ari, you've been on many trips with President Bush to the sites of tragic events. On a day like this, what's the most important message that the president carries with him to Surfside?
Oh, there's no question the most important message is the message of love and compassion for the family members who gather to listen to the president and to hopefully give them some ray of hope. You know, that's what these families want to hear. They want to talk. They want to talk about their loved ones, and the opportunity to talk to the president of the United States and have him listen as you describe who your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad is, and your hope that they'll come out alive 1 week later. It's the hardest listening a president has to do.
Can only imagine. There's all kinds of, whenever a president decides to travel to the site where something tragic has befallen Americans, there's this fierce political debate about whether he's hurting more than helping by inserting himself into the process. Take a listen to Miami-Dade's mayor earlier this morning. I want to hear what your response is to on the other side.
I want to stress that President Biden's visit today will have no impact on what happens at this site. The search and rescue operation will continue as soon as it is safe to do so. The only reason for this pause is concerns about the standing structure.
She also went on to say, Ari, that not a minute of officials' time who was involved in this investigation was going to be diverted because of the presidential visit. Does that strike you as a realistic thing to say? Do you buy that?
It certainly does. I do buy that. You know, when the president travels, he travels with a massive federal arsenal. It's supported by local police and local enforcement for traffic control and things of that nature. But those aren't the people on the pile. Those are not the people sifting through the debris and the search and rescue experts. They're a different group of people. And we should be a nation that, I don't care what party you are, when a president comes to town after a tragedy like this, it should be consoling. And that's how I take President Biden's visit there. I don't begrudge him one thing about going to that site. It's where a president should go.
Interesting. That's good to hear. I want to draw your attention to something else. We've got this new Fox polling ahead of the holiday weekend that shows, let's pull this up so our viewers can see it at home. Among people who were asked if the U.S. is the best country in the world to live in, it looks like in 2011 and 15, the yeses were in the 80th percentiles. Now, in 2021, that number is down to 69%, and 26% of Americans say it's not the best country in the world to live in. What gives?
Well, first, if they had asked me, I would say, yes, America is the best country to ever live in, and we are the greatest country on earth. We've gone through a pretty miserable year, though, And I guess I
That's
understand
true.
if there are some people after the murder of George Floyd with the racial strife in the United States that is inspired by some people who push it way too far. COVID shutdowns. I can understand why there's a sense of angst or anxiety, but at all times, America is a self-correcting democracy, and what saddens me the most, though, Jillian, is anybody who misinterprets what July 4th is all about. America was founded on the greatest breakthroughs on earth as we separated ourselves from the Europeans, which were an intolerant, tyrannical group of states, to promote religious liberty and tolerance in the United States of America. This was the essence of our founding. Freedom was the essence of our founding. And for anybody to think that America was founded for any other reason or for any other purpose doesn't understand the history and the greatness of America. We've always been distinct, we've always been different, and God bless our country, and thank goodness for our founding.
And as politicians both sides of the aisle have been pointing out these days, we've always been imperfect as a nation.
Yeah.
And what entity on earth has ever been perfect? So you ride the wave. Hopefully some people will come back to feeling good and proud of the United States after the COVID bounce back is fully in place, after, 90% of Americans have been vaccinated or whatever the Biden administration wants to do. Ari Fleischer, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jillian.
Always good to see Ari. Bill Cosby is a free man after a Pennsylvania Supreme Court tossed out his sexual assault conviction. Coming up, a Fox News exclusive. We will talk to the prosecutor who made a deal with Cosby that the Supreme Court said was the reason he should get out of jail.
Plus this, Broadway's beloved hit Hamilton, you may have heard of it, is cashing in now on pandemic relief funds. The record-breaking show is reportedly eligible for millions of dollars in aid that is raising some eyebrows in the entertainment community.
And new findings from Hunter Biden's alleged laptop. We will talk to Miranda Devine, who has been digging through the documents. Stay with us.